Welcome back, Principal Matters podcast listeners. I am Dr. Jen Schwanke, and I am here with my co-host, Will Parker.
Hi, Jen.
Hi there. We had to start over because I stumbled on your name and on what we're even doing here. We are recording an episode of Principal Matters. And my guests today are Mike Hayes, who is the assistant superintendent in Aurora in Ohio, and Ashley Pacholewski, sorry, Ashley, on that butchering of your name, who is the first female principal of Aurora High School. So looking forward to our listeners hearing from these two, a true dynamic duo.
And I love when you bring guests to the show because I learned so much from the conversations. So this will be episode 511. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Hey, but before we listen to you talk to Mike and Ashley, instead of a Q&A this week, I want you to brag. I want listeners to know years and years ago, I want them to learn a little bit about the audio version of your first book. You're the principal now, but I have to set some context because Will's, perspective on it matters to me too. But 2017 probably was the first time I came across your book. I'd seen it before, but I actually hadn't read it until then. And that was because I was working at our State Principals Association. I was working along with Gracie Branch, who led the elementary association at the time. And she and I decided to share your book with a new principals academy that we were leading. And then you zoomed in at the end of that whole year just to meet people and talk about your book. And so I have recommended your book to so many people, and just this past year, you recorded an audio version of it. So, okay. So first of all, I want to find out, what was that like? And I know we've only got a few minutes before we introduce our guests, but this is our show, so we can talk a little long if we want to.
Right.
But the second thing, I want to know what it was like to record it, but then two, what was it like to revisit it all these years later?
Right. Well, both of those are long answers that I will make short. First of all, I've always wanted to record an audiobook, partly because I think that's where our listeners are. They're in the car driving to work, right? So my publisher, ASCD, connected with Echo Point Books and worked through the rights. I don't even know how that works. Thank goodness for someone in Kate Russo who knows how that works. But Echo Point Books got the rights to the audiobook, and so I recorded with them. And I found a local recording studio, and then they did the tech. Again, not definitely my skill set, but it was a interesting experience. It was a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah.
I thought that I would just roll through it, right? But it's a very long book, and you would not believe how many mistakes can be made just as you're reading your own words. Pauses, mispronunciations, problems with pacing. And so you have to stop and go back. And, a lot of what we do with the podcast, except multiply that times 100,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I did not love about it is the book is 10 years old. And so there are things that, I haven't fundamentally changed my belief system about leadership, but there were some things in there that I wouldn't probably advise anymore. And it, education moves quickly. Words change and evolve. Just as one example, I had a lot in there about RTI. Well, now we talk about MTSS. But to ensure the authenticity and fidelity of a book, you read every single word. And so I couldn't go off and say, hey, I think this has evolved a little bit. And that was a little jarring. I still think the book is an excellent resource for new principals because I kind of break it down into different categories of concern that new principals will face. And so the work is still relevant, don't get me wrong, but it was strange. It was really strange to read aloud a text I had written 10 years ago.
Wow, Jen. Okay, so is it available, and how can listeners find it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because it is available on Amazon. However, Echo Point Books is going to give me some discount codes that I think you and I could pop on the show notes, and I'll put on my website too for folks to get their hands on that for a very, very affordable price. So that's coming in the next few weeks.
Okay, well, let us know, and we'll share that out too. And I hope you'll put that in your newsletter also. But congrats, Jen.
Yeah,
I'm excited because it is and has been a real go-to for people when they're stepping into the work of principal. And and I know you wrote it from practice,
Yep.
and it's so full of great little narratives and scripts and conversations that you can anticipate having. Um, um, it's very different than a lot of the other books I've read on leadership because and there's some great ones on school leadership out there that share a lot of practices and templates and rubrics, but yours is very much the nitty gritties of
Yeah, it is. And it's written, each chapter is kind of its standalone. So you don't have to read it cover to cover. So thank you for the chance, seriously, Will, to talk about it. It was a fun experience, and I hope I get to do it again with some of my other books. So
congratulations.
yeah.
And I know Principal Matters listeners are going to love this conversation with Mike and Ashley. Until next time, Jen, how can they stay connected with you?
Yeah, find me at jenschwanke.com, and they can email me there or find my newsletter there. And Will, where do they find you?
They can find me at williamdparker.com or today's notes for today's show at principalmatterspodcast.com.
Excellent.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Everyone talks about the power of data-driven instruction, but what does that actually look like? Look no further than iExcel, the ultimate online learning and teaching platform for K-12. iExcel gives you meaningful insights that drive real progress, and research can prove it. Studies in nearly all 50 states across the U.S. show that schools that use iExcel outperform other schools on state tests. Educators who use iExcel love that they can easily see how their schools are performing in real time to make better instructional decisions. And iExcel doesn't stop at just data. iExcel also brings an entire ecosystem of resources for your teachers with a complete curriculum, personalized learning plans, and so much more. It's no wonder that iExcel is used in 95 of the top 100 school districts. Ready to join them? Visit iexcel.com/PM to get started. As a school leader, you have a vision of a thriving, supportive educational environment where every teacher and student can succeed. With DigiCoach, you can turn that vision into reality. Imagine walking into a classroom with DigiCoach on your mobile device. Its customizable look-fors and pre-written feedback statements streamline your feedback process, saving you precious time. You're not just observing, you're actively supporting your teachers while generating data to drive instructional change. With the new coaching plan feature, you can effortlessly document action plans and coaching conversations. This ensures every teacher is supported, and you can track their progress related to your campus goals. DigiCoach empowers you to customize the platform to fit your specific needs, reinforcing your vision at every step. And when you need support, the DigiCoach team becomes your team, with consulting efforts focused on realizing your organization's goals. By using DigiCoach, you lead your school to remarkable progress. Ready to turn your vision into reality? Visit digicoach.com and tell them Will Parker sent you.
You're listening to Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast.
Welcome back to Principal Matters. I am Dr. Jen Schwanke, and as many of you know, my roots and my work are deeply planted right here in Ohio. And because of that, I've always had a great deal of respect for Aurora City Schools as a community and a school district that consistently demonstrates what it looks like to lead with both excellence and heart. And today's episode is kind of a full circle moment for me. About a year ago, I had a conversation with a leader, Ashley Pacholewski, right? Did I say that right, Ashley?
It's right.
Okay, who I will henceforth refer to as Ashley Patch. And she was preparing to step into a massive first. She was becoming the first female principal in the history of Aurora High School and her first principal job. So we talked about the weight of that role and imposter syndrome that tends to creep in, and this idea that her hiring wasn't just a win for her, it was a really powerful statement about the community's readiness to grow. And so today I get to welcome Ashley Patch to the mic. But here's what's really cool. When I said, "Hey, Ashley, come on the podcast," she said, "Well, there's somebody who really, really helped me set the stage for that success, my mentor and the current assistant superintendent for the district, Mike Hayes." So today we're going to invite them both to just kind of talk about not only their roles, but about that transition. So welcome, Mike, and welcome, Ashley.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's gonna be great. I'm so excited, all the questions I have to ask. I also wanna talk about this building that you guys affectionately call the greenhouse. We're gonna talk about, that, not only the building, but about how, using that metaphor, we can cultivate growth. So welcome to the show. And Mike, we're actually gonna start with you. You led Aurora High School for 5 years before you moved into this assistant superintendent role. And then Ashley, you stepped in as the first female principal. Mike, how did you navigate that transition? What did you see as Ashley was stepping in that kind of helped you keep that greenhouse culture in mind?
Well, I think it starts all the way back with the interview process. We had over 40 stakeholders involved in a multitude of rounds that included students representing a multitude of grade levels, certified staff from every single department, between every teaching department, secretarial, guidance, athletics, maintenance, and custodial, and our entire administrative team. So we had a lot of opportunities for everybody's voice to be represented, for everybody to feel engaged as part of the process. But within that, it was really important for us to set a tone about how we were analyzing all of the candidates throughout that process, and really centering our analysis on our roots or our values, which we'll get into a little bit later because it really connects into that greenhouse culture. So that was instrumental because so many people had a voice in the process and felt connected. They got to see Ashley as well as all the other candidates firsthand. They got to share, their perspectives, and we got to, utilize their perspectives in terms of making our, informed decisions. And then moving forward, once we settled on Ashley Patch, which for me it was a no-brainer. I felt like it was really important for the entire building to hear from not only me, the high school administrative team, as well as our current superintendent who was transitioning at the time as well, Dr. Paul Milsatich, for all the staff members to hear from us advocating for Ashley, hearing them or hearing us talk about how much we believe in her, how excited we are for her, not only that she's going to assimilate to the culture that we already have built, but is going to make it better. And that's what our greenhouse culture is all about, is continuously nurturing roots and helping people and processes grow and blossom. And so for the staff to be able to hear that, to hear our passion and excitement for her, felt like was a really important next step. And then as she transitioned into the role over the course of the first summer and into the new school year, really it was about showcasing trust, providing that forum for empowerment. So, hey, we're teammates, we're working alongside each other, we're talking through things. But when it comes for Ashley's, connections with our kids and with our colleagues, to not have me or Paul hovering over her shoulder in those types of meetings, but to allow her to truly blossom and forge those great connections. And with that, we're sending a subconscious message to everybody that, like, yeah, we believe in her. She's got it. We don't need to be over there. And she knows that she can come to us with anything. So I think that's really how we, set the stage, I think, to, not just survive the change, but to thrive. And I'll let Ashley expand on that, anything that, she feels necessary as well. So.
Well, yeah, I think from my lens, we always talk about finding the best candidate, but being a candidate, we're also interviewing the community that we want to be a part of to see if it's going to be a good fit. And over the course of just this rigorous interview process, it became really clear to me, oh my gosh, this is a community that's completely aligned to what I believe good teaching and learning looks like. That's amazing. You don't see that very often. So I was just super grateful to be stepping into a community whose values were my own. And then with the early onboarding, Mike was very diligent in inviting me to graduation that school year, getting feedback from our building leadership team, what they wanted me to know and how they were hoping to help me transition into the role. He actually gave me a tour of Aurora. We drove around and I got to see our community. And then I learned a lot of our systems by reviewing like a lot of different agendas for a lot of different meetings that meet together. And then, Mike was our building principal. Dr. Milsatich, our current superintendent, was also a high school principal in Aurora. So it's been amazing to have two people in our central office role that have the lived experience of being a high school principal in our district and the institutional knowledge to set us up for success. And then obviously Mike talked about having the space to just make sure that I'm building like very genuine relationships. And I'm very grateful because I feel like they've given me permission to enjoy my first year. And you don't hear that very often. It's always like, okay, what deliverables are you going to have? Like, what are your goals going to be? Like, what are your metrics? And I think there's a lot of beauty to hearing, hey, have fun, get to know everybody, and just enjoy your first year. So I've really taken time to do that. And it took me a little bit of time to process that because, to be completely honest, that's new. I was like, wait a minute, what? I get to do that? And then honestly, like just making sure that I'm truly showing them that I'm valuing the feedback and the coaching that I'm getting by honoring the systems and the traditions that were well established before I got here. So from my perspective, paired with what Mike had talked about, I feel like that really made sure that like everybody in the greenhouse was thriving.
Right. I cannot stress, like, if anybody listening to this podcast hears just that, have fun that first year, right? There's this narrative out there that you're going to be a miserable person for a year or 2 or 3 or 20, and it really shouldn't be. And so that permission that they gave you, hey, enjoy it. Really, that's probably why when you and I were in touch again a couple weeks ago, I could almost feel your joy and pride about this first year. And it's, not a surprise that you kind of gave credit to others, but I think that also lives with you. And Ashley, oh my gosh, can we talk for a minute of what that interview must have looked like? 40 people. I've been in that position where I'm like, did they go to the local grocery store and get people to like, where did all these people come from? So congratulations. What that means though, is you won it. You won that job because you had to go through that very rigorous process.
One other thing you made me think about here, and maybe something unique for your listeners, that I also felt like maybe I think was beneficial for our staff. We did an activity at the end of the year after Ashley was board approved that we called Seeds of Support, and kind of connecting with our greenhouse culture. But there's always that anxiety for all the staff members to feel like, oh my gosh, we have a new leader, blah blah blah. But trying to showcase this idea that like this is a vulnerable position for this leader to be in. You have a new leader, but they've got a great deal of new students and staff members and community members. So how can we create meaningful forums for you to reflect on how you can best support the person coming into this role? Like you have an active role to play in this process, and so that actually helps provide a framework or a mindset for some of our staff members to really think about that transition, and then having kind of ownership in it being a successful role. And I would think any kind of activity like that could be helpful for any team going through such a transition.
That's great information. And by the way, I'll put Mike and Ashley's contact information in the show notes. So if there's anybody out there listening who's like, I want to know more about that activity, you can get in touch with them. Because I think there needs to be, it's kind of two things that happen there. It's a statement, right? Hey, this is what we're going to do and we're moving forward. And then it allows that natural kind of organic development of relationships too. Ashley, you've mentioned that Mike was a significant mentor to you as you listened, as you learned, as you led. What did that mentorship look like in the day-to-day? Clearly, Mike didn't say, hey, call me if you need me. Did you have scheduled check-ins? Did you have a just as needed? How did that look?
Yeah, I mean, we're a team.
Right.
And he genuinely means that. So there are systems in place for checkpoints. I know we have a one-on-one scheduled like every 2 weeks, but we have the ability to communicate all the time. And kind of like overarching values that feed into that are just like generous assumptions. We always assume the most positive thing out of everyone around us. And that's like a greenhouse value. He's really patient. And especially when I'm learning so much, that means a lot. It's not just what he says, it's the actions and the follow through and him showing me that like he really genuinely wants me to be successful and is investing in me. And as a result of that, he has created a super safe space where I know he believes in me. And that comes from caring just like as a good human being to another good human being. Like no egos. And if it comes out, we try to check each other, try to be as open-minded as possible. And then just this like collaboration where, we're safe to like evolve ideas. And I think that's like really beautiful to have.
Mike, I have seen, and you've probably seen, people who can't let go of their building, right? Because they were beloved, it was beloved, and then moving on. And I did just what you did. I went from principal to assistant superintendent. I had no problem moving on because the person who replaced me was fantastic. Was it hard for you to let go? I mean, I've seen some really damaging transitions because staff gets divided. We liked Mr. Hayes. We don't know if it's going to be the same. Somebody moved my cheese. Talk to us about that transition.
Well, I just want to be around people who make me better, both personally and professionally. And I feel like our staff wants that too. So I think going back to that notion of us building Ashley up, doing activities like the Seeds of Support, Ashley was fantastic in terms of setting up one-on-one meetings that were virtual last spring when she was making the transition to forge those connections. Allowing her to have forums to connect with our kids over the summer. So some of our student leadership groups having the opportunity to have more intimate meetings with her and things like that. And really just allowing her authentic self to shine through. Like, to me, that's what I want out of our entire environment. I want our teachers to be that way. I want them to bring their authentic selves into the classroom and allow the kids to benefit from that. I want our students to do the exact same thing. And I want our community to feel that joy and authenticity just shining through all the time. So of course, there's like this element of like, yeah, it's tough because I love the kids, I love the people, all of those types of things. But I feel like if I love it enough, then I want to put the right people in place to continue to let it thrive. So, and I think because we had such a rigorous process, and because Ashley was so well aligned with our value system, and because she wants to put in the work necessary to cultivate the relationships, to be ever present with our kids and our community and our staff members, it's easy. So, there's like, there is probably an element of ego where it's like, oh, I love this part. Like, I love connecting with our kids during this moment of the school year or that moment of the school year. But knowing that like it's going to continue to evolve, and Ashley's going to be able and has like made it her own by her own self, being able to connect with people. And she has the ability to do that in different ways than I ever could. And we talk about that with staff members. Hey, this staff member is able to connect with this student so uniquely in comparison to maybe another staff member who has a very different relationship with that kid. So I think in Ashley's case, it's the same thing. She brings her own joy, her own energy to the environment that's allowing the greenhouse to thrive. So of course there's like a challenge with it, but I also have other things that I'm excited about in my role. Is that, hey, I'm connecting with other people across the district, and that's been great as well. So I have all the confidence in the world in Ashley. And so although there's that, like I said, that slight bit of like, oh my gosh, I'm not in those certain moments anymore, it's all good because she's doing an awesome job.
So I want to come back to the shift to central office. So hold those thoughts. Ashley, before that though, you mentioned to me, and this actually made me so stinking happy. You said, I think they hired me to be myself. And those are pretty profound words, because in a world of imposter syndrome, especially as a first, how do you show up? Was this, whether it's an interview or every day, to be that playful, collaborative, authentic leader, but also not lose sight of the gravity of the position? Like, high school principal is an important role. So what does that mean? They hired me to be myself.
Well, I mean, from day one, the tone was set. Dr. Milsatich, in my case, told me, be yourself, which I think is amazing. And our staff in the greenhouse truly values being genuine, because we're so values driven, and we share those values, and we know that we're coming to school every day to fearlessly serve kids together as teammates. That cultivates these conditions to really make sure that we're enjoying each other and having fun and living our standard and doing really great work together, which I think is outstanding. I will say, like, there is conscious time that's intentionally invested in each other as teammates, like all the way from our central office team where, oh my gosh, we're going to be at the Friday night football game. Let's go grab pizza ahead of time and we'll laugh and joke and be silly. But we also perform at very high levels and challenge each other. I don't know. Someone in our district once said, iron sharpens iron, my case. I wasn't here for that individual, but I hear it a lot. And we really do believe in working with each other out of care to evolve one another. So that, from our central office and, our high school administrative team, which I am so grateful to have two amazing assistant principals on my team that are constantly growing me as well, all the way to our staff and our families. Because one of the things that I've truly enjoyed about our school culture is that encouragement and gratitude are cultural. So we write handwritten notes of appreciation. We have a personal connections tracker for kids where we even log who we're sending letters to. So we're trying to get all of our kids. I write handwritten notes to all of our staff members so that one is waiting in their mailbox when they get home from Christmas break. They're home away from home, this home, the greenhouse. But it's a mindset where we're constantly encouraging and inspiring each other. And that's a really amazing culture to walk into. And how can you not want to rise all the way up when it's like that?
I think about a lot of the principals I know and their fear, especially as they first move into the role, about the fear that this will be a really lonely job. And what I'm getting up, and it can be, it absolutely can be, but what I'm picking up from you two is you have a culture in your district where we're not going to be lonely. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to do what we need to do to kind of combat that. And that's a huge takeaway too for our listeners. Let's make sure nobody's lonely, right? Mike, you have mentioned before operating with passion and heart. And now you've moved into central office, and we don't have to tell our listeners what feeling is out there about the dreaded CO, but I'm someone who loves my job, loves working at central office, loves the connections that I have to the principals. And so I would love to know how you kind of manage the bureaucracy. Let's be honest, it's there, or the politics of the district, and how you keep yourself really student centered at the heart of your decision making at both at CO and during your mentorship of new principals.
I think that's an interesting question. First and foremost, I wanted to say that this is a testament to our community and our Board of Education that they're incredibly supportive. And there is a dedicated effort to create a decentralized form of leadership, and that stems down to our teachers serving as instructional leaders, to our principals really being empowered, assistant principals, other specialists, things like that. So I think I feel really fortunate to be part of a district that has really high expectations, but is very, very supportive along the way to do all they can to eliminate red tape or bureaucracy. Of course, I'm not going to be naive to, financial restraints or things that are impeding our ability to, do certain things that we want to do. But ultimately, like, there is nothing stopping us from being creative, from doing, from putting, foot to pavement, so to speak, and actually making the strides or taking the strides necessary to provide our kids and our colleagues and our community with caring, intentional and meaningful experiences. So I feel like if I'm, and this goes back to our strategic vision, which focuses on 6 roots or competencies, and they lead into a learner. And honestly, it's like that you mentioned, keep being student centered. We just talk about all the time being learner centered, and learner being synonymous for our students, our staff members, our community. We're all learners together. So we're keeping that at the forefront all the time by being creative and working intentionally to provide those meaningful experiences that don't take, additional funding or require cutting down red tape. They require passion. They require heart. So I think that goes back to hiring people who are aligned with our values, that can continue to, put themselves into the work, meaning their own values shine through in the stuff that they're doing to inspire our kids and our colleagues. And I think that's what helps, keep that heart at the forefront of our decision making, of our processes. So I hope that answers the question.
It did. And I'm going to tie that back to, you guys have mentioned the greenhouse, and again, such an evocative nickname for a school. You've talked about roots and you've talked about growing. I guess this is a question for Ashley. When we talked earlier, you said the fact that they hired me, the first woman, my first principal role, was a statement about the community. So now that you're, when we're recording this, you're finishing your first year. What have you learned about the greenhouse and the communities readiness for change and growth. A lot of places, it is impossible to change and grow. Tell me about that culture.
Well, I mean, I'll say I have a lot of administrative colleagues that when I took this position, I told them how excited I was after the interview process. They're like, oh my gosh, Ashley, is this for real? Is this for real? Does this really exist? And I kind of laughed and I was like, well, we'll find out.
Right.
And, you know, literally day one, first week, I reached out. I was like, hey guys, it's real. It's something that we talk about. It's something that we practice. It's something that's embraced by everyone. I think really, again, it's a cultural mindset. So it's not top down, it's bottom up. And really, as a community, it's beautiful to see people embrace one another authentically as themselves. And, you know, Mike talked a little bit about our student competencies, but we also have our learning design specs as a district. And our learning design specs, you know, two of them that really stick out to me is that we value the process, not the product, because we know that making mistakes is actually us growing and learning. That has to happen. We're human beings. That's how we learn. And then the second piece is that we nurture our authentic identities and relationships. And it's not just like a likability factor of, oh, I really, you know, like, you know, working with this person, or I like my teacher because he's a Browns fan, right? It's no, we as human beings genuinely embrace our authentic identities, and in doing that create that psychologically safe space so that we can learn and grow, because we grow whole people and we are whole people and we bring our whole selves to work every day. So for me, it's been really beautiful to step into a community where it is a cultural mindset. It's something that, you know, I've learned to in my building relationships with staff members. I've learned a little bit about them, their interests, what they like to do, you know, outside of work. And then even in my own way, express that gratitude. And it's been really beautiful to even see like our teaching colleagues respond to kind of what I do. Like I grow flowers in my free time. So on Mondays, I bring in 10 homemade like mason jar bouquets that I'll leave at different desks. And it's been really beautiful. The teachers that have approached me and said, oh my gosh, I really like this. Like, this was really thoughtful of you. You know what I mean? And not just like the lady teachers, I leave them for everybody. So it's been really beautiful to have even like some of what I would describe as like the gruffer guys come in and say, man, I really liked that. Or, what was it? And I was like, oh, it's Thai basil. And they're like, oh my gosh, that was really thoughtful of you, you know, and they express gratitude. And that's a cultural thing. Like, so those moments I feel like describe or are a symbol of what it's like here all the time. And it's really real and beautiful. And it's something that everybody has worked to create, that I am very honored to kind of maintain and model.
If I felt dubious about this, the fact that Ashley Pacholewski brings mason jars of flowers from her own garden, I mean, come on, this is amazing. I always think I'm going to bring flowers from my own daggone desk, and I don't. So I think I want to go work at Aurora is what I think. You both talk about doing work together. Can you share a specific system or a practice that kind of exemplifies this side-by-side work rather than top-down work?
I think one of the things that comes to my mind is starting with intentional language driving what we say and subsequently what we do. An example of that would be, you know, as opposed to saying like, "Hey, great job with this," it's I truly like you know, appreciate working, learning, and growing alongside you. And it's never that like diminutive type of language, and that goes back to how then we're communicating with students and staff as well, embedding that kind of whether it's the competencies or design specs into our language, but that collaborative sense in terms of what we say, and then hopefully that allows us to then operate in that way, and it allows people to, you know, continuously see and feel that collaborative spirit. So again, I think it starts with intentional language, and that's both written and verbally. And then I think it's transparency, as we're all just working towards, you know, what we would call, or Simon Sinek might call, the just cause. You know, we're focused on our learners, our kids and our colleagues and our community, focused on our 6 competencies or our roots: critical thinking, collaboration, balance, innovation, empathy, resilience, and doing what we can to, you know, continue to nurture those roots and foster growth, and knowing that it's going to look different for every single person. And so, Ashley and I have talked about, hey, the way that I might, connect with a staff member or drive change or growth for them might look different for her based on our working relationship with that person or with that student or with that parent. But if we're working in alignment with the just cause, it doesn't matter how we do it, like, what the outcome is, as long, or, the product, what that looks like, it's the process along the way that is authentic to that individual person. So transparency, working, together for the just cause, and being really intentional with what we do and what we say.
Ashley, anything to add to that?
I would say, like, Mike and Dr. Milsitich, our superintendent, this isn't something that, like, they just model. It's something that we calibrate on as an administrative team. Like, we will go to district level administrative team meetings where we talk about how we phrase positive feedback. It's not, hey, you inspired me. It's, you are inspiring, because our teaching colleagues shouldn't have to please us. Like, they're doing amazing work and they are inspiring. So even down to that granular level, that intentionality and calibration is so incredibly important to have those conversations. And they really are those moments where those marbles go into the jar of trust, right? And it's how we cultivate trust with our teaching colleagues and with one another. People might say that language is such like a philosophical place to start, but it's really not. You're shaping, the narrative of your district and of our district, of our building together. And it's very important.
All I was thinking about as Ashley spoke there was that there's such intentionality as well about all of our teams learning together. So Ashley does a great job of creating forums in our staff meetings, our instructional leader meetings at the building level for staff members and administrators to learn together. We try to do that at the district level. When we bring all of our administrators in, we have meetings about every 3 weeks together. We set aside about 45 to 60 minutes to intentionally learn together. And we have, it's really tailored, focused, but it allows for that sense of vulnerability to come through. It allows us to become better with one another. So again, that also eliminates maybe this top-down mandate of like, hey, you guys have to go do this. No, we're all seeing each other, learning together, and ultimately growing together, seeing how we can benefit one another. So I feel like that's maybe, I know I spoke more philosophically about things, but that's something that's more tactical, is really spending that dedicated time learning together, both a building level and a district level.
One of the things that, as you talk, my word hasn't changed, and that's just respect. I hear a lot of respect that you have, not only for each other, but for the teachers and the work they do. I've done a lot of have a lot of conversation with principals where it really is an us versus them mentality. Even if they would swear there isn't, it's there. And so I'm sensing that there's a lot of respect even for the people who maybe don't usually get a voice, the custodian at the table for Ashley's interview. Like, it's a respect for the value of the work. And so that leads me to this question. When we're recording this, Mike, you're fully immersed in the assistant superintendent role, and Ashley, you're finishing year 1, but this will air when you're starting year 2. So fill that blank space for me. What is next for you?
It's an infinite game. Like we get to keep playing it, and we get to keep growing and evolving in our ability to serve and lead and care for one another and care for our community. And going back to that greenhouse analogy, it's continuing to tend to the greenhouse. So we know that every season, plants are going to require different, types of soil, light, water. And the way we approach, cultivating growth might need to change. And with our administrators, hey, where Ashley's going to be entering in year 2 is different than where she is year 1, and we have to be cognizant of that. Where the graduating class this year has different strengths or different needs than the incoming freshman class that's going to come in at the start of the 26-27 school year. Our educators have to be aware of those things that we can celebrate, those areas where we can refine. And so it's tending to that greenhouse analogy, or tending to that greenhouse, and continuing to keep our kids and our colleagues at the forefront. And I always like this story about scientists in the early 90s working on the biodome in the southwest region of the United States, and they're trying to create ideal conditions for growth in a greenhouse-like environment. And they were growing these trees to a certain height, and after a while they started collapsing. And what they ended up realizing was that they didn't account for the wind, and the wind actually hardens the bark and allows the trees to remain strong. And so part of that connects to our root or competency of resilience. And so when we're thinking about how do we cultivate growth, how do we allow people to stand tall and strong and embrace all of the elements, we have to be aware of the factors that are impacting them and doing everything we can to not remove obstacles, but help them grow within the obstacles, so that when whether it's a principal, a teacher, a custodian, a student, when they encounter something, they have the ability to withstand the elements. And so it's tending to that greenhouse and caring for all those people who are part of it. So to me, that's what's next.
I know of a lot of people who need to hear that story about the wind and the trees. I'm absolutely gonna tell that story. Okay, so advice for our listeners: anybody who's in a first, anybody who's new role, a veteran leader, going to hand over the keys, a new principal, what is one piece of advice you would give to these people facing a first? Ashley, you go first.
Say, be intentional, nurture the relationships, have fun, be present.
Yeah.
Trust and celebrate everyone around you and find what makes them amazing.
Right.
And be sure that your team knows that you see them at their best every day. Always assume the positive intent, give the trust to get it back, ask for help, lean into one another, express gratitude for feedback, and live your values.
That's fantastic. That's it. And don't forget, she said, have fun, people. Don't forget that. What about you, Mike?
Well, I'm thinking about when it was in Ashley's first round interview, and we asked her final question. Why should we bring you to a second round? Why are you the best candidate moving forward? And her answer gave me goosebumps. She said, because I'm fearless. And I think for advice to people going to their first in that role is being fearless and not being reckless, but being willing to take those risks to be yourself, to cultivate the connections necessary, not to just assimilate, but to make the organization better. So lean into your authenticity and let that light shine out, because that's what's going to allow the organization, the kids, and the community to truly thrive. So that fearless notion comes into mind, and I would echo everything Ashley said about expressing gratitude, having fun, giving and getting trust in return, having that mindset of reciprocity, so that we're continuously giving and receiving. But ultimately be fearless and enjoy it.
I think I would have hired anybody who said, I'm fearless, and meant it. That would be that's an amazing mindset there, Ashley. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank you both. What a powerful testament, really, to what happens when leaders focus on the health and future of the entire district and work side by side, work really closely together. And Ashley Pacholewski, I just wanted to say your name because now I've mastered how to say it. Knowing that you are flourishing in this historic role at Aurora really confirms what I knew about you when we first got in touch. And Mike, your commitment to lifting up the next wave of leaders as you moved into district leadership is exactly what our profession needs right now. I mean, that's what we need. We need to be building a really strong bench of strong leaders to take us through the next steps in education, whatever that's going to be. So to our listeners, whether you're a first in your role or you're a veteran who's going to start a new school year doing all the things that you know how to do, remember that leadership really is about the environment that we cultivate, and we want everyone to thrive. Not to be obnoxious with this, but if you build a greenhouse, the growth will come. So thank you all for joining me on this episode of Principal Matters, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Principal Matters.